Welcome, everybody. This is Gery Gerst's trip to Cuba, or Cuba, as they say. He's going to talk about the diversity of life there, the food, the places they went, what people learned, and how your mind can expand in ways which you might be surprised by. So without further ado, we have award-winning Gery Gerst here with us. So welcome, Gery.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. Or even if you're solo, it doesn't matter. So this is going to be a potpourri of Cuba with the idea that we're not trying to sell anything. You may have preconceived notions. I know my group did, and boy, were they exploded. So stereotypes are challenged if you have an open mind there. We're going to sample a little bit of the culture, music, etc. Also, just in case you're wondering, yes, we'll see cars. And politically, before you wade into this, just realize I'm going to try to be like a mirror and just share with you what we saw. And I would say that I know the history of Cuba, and I'll probably work that in a little bit. But anyway, let's begin, and I'm going to challenge you right off the bat. I will say that I'm going to start out with a couple comments. I asked just about every night, we sat down to dinner, and I asked my group, so what surprised you? What was different than you had previously thought about Cuba today? What did you learn, etc. And here's some of the comments that I got toward the end, just to give you a flavor. One person said they seemed very happy and content, but they would love to have connections with the United States. Another person said, I have no idea why the US is not connecting with them. Another one said, I felt incredibly safe, in fact, safer than some cities I've been in the United States. Another one said she was really impressed with the recycling. You will see just buildings falling apart. I'll explain that. But they are very good. If a building is demolished or falling apart, they will take the pieces and use them to fix up their homes or build a fence or whatever. Very ingenious. And another person said, I love what she called hotels, and you'll see it's not, it's more like bed and breakfast, Airbnb, etc. But anyway, she said they were incredibly clean, and every place we went, I can tell you, the maids left us little notes, did beautiful folding exercises, were appreciative of us being there, and were incredibly nice. And you don't always get that here. So, all right, let's go to the next slide. There's a video, and when you watch it, I'm going to encourage you to watch it. The link, when you do watch it, is listed below. And it goes by kind of, well, it doesn't take very long, about 4 minutes. But you will see a lot about the diversity of faces, colors, types of people. The structures also, you will see how different they are. And you'll definitely get a flavor of the music. And if you aren't dancing by the end, I don't know how to help you. And you'll see the society and how different age groups intermingle, etc. It's a beautiful film to give you a slice of Cuba. So I'll leave that to you in the interest of time. YouTube has it. Here's a map, and it's, excuse me, this is where we went. We took a tour bus inland, across land, because I didn't want to go just to touristy sites like on a boat, and we didn't. We wanted question and answer, that was my goal. Sit down face to face and talk to people of all walks of life, even in the town square. And before you think that question, One of the stereotypes people had was that the police would be looking over your shoulder all the time, that they would be afraid to talk to you, that you couldn't move about freely, and nothing could be further from the truth. We went anywhere we wanted. We walked down alleyways. We talked to people in the streets. We talked to kids. I asked questions straight out, and I got straight answers, and I didn't even see police, and it was totally relaxed and totally personal. Where I had been in Russia, and that's true. Police were everywhere, and people were afraid to talk, and they would not answer any political questions of any type. So this is not Russia, okay? Just to say that. So we went to Cuba up in the top left, Havana, Old Havana and New Havana. We went over to the east of that, to Matanza, and that's where Hemingway had a village, a little village, and he also, a little village, and where he wrote Old Man in the Sea. It's also where my Cuban Spanish teacher had a summer cabin. Then we went to the south to the Bay of Pigs and Cienfuegos to the right of it. We also went to Trinidad, Sancti Spiritus, beautiful place, and Villa Clara, more of a resortish place on the Caribbean. So we got a full flavor of Cuba. Here's the group, and if you know the history of Spain, you know that they conquered Cuba, which was inhabited by indigenous peoples, the Taínos, who were just about totally exterminated. So once the Spanish were there, that's where most people's history starts. And this is probably a 1500s cathedral built by Spain. And what a great group, what a great lifelong learner set of people. They have two kinds of currency in Cuba. They have pesos for the locals, the Cubans, and they call them coops, they're pesos. And then for the visitors, they have cucs, C-U-C, which here's the value, if you will. And by the way, those pictures, that's Che Guevara, that's not Castro. So if we went there with $1, and we had to use cash, by the way, if we went there with $1 and converted it to coops, we would get 25 coops, pesos. So it's 1 to 25. And there we go. Then we have food. Yeah, comidas típicas. This is typical food of Cuba. Here you go. Ropa vieja. Yeah, old rope is what it means. But you see very typical food there. It's pulled pork, rice, beans, rice, lime. Oh yeah, everywhere. Olives for sure. And then pulled pork with whatever seasoning you feel like, and peppers. Then they have la medianoche. You'd call it a snack sandwich. Medianoche means middle of the night, for obvious reasons. You get hungry. Los moros, that refers to the black beans there. And this is such a typical bowl. Anyway, moros were the Moors that Spain fought with way back in the 1500s or sooner. And the Moors were pretty dark skinned. And so they called the beans los moros. There's los moros, and you can see the typical stuff. Pork and chicken, that's huge. Beef, you don't see so much, no. Pork and chicken is what the people eat. And boy, are they free-range chickens. They are everywhere, and they are everything is local, everything is fresh, and they don't have supermarkets. So I adored this. And the other thing on the bottom plate is plantains. Fried bananas, if you will. Delish. Again, typical. aguacate or avocado, and then plantains, plátanos. Again, delicious, filling, healthy, yum. If you live on the coast, they do have a shrimp industry, and so you can get camarones, shrimp. And this is so typical. You got pineapple, orange, and guava. Furthermore, did I mention chicken and pork? So there you go. Same, pretty typical. And yeah, they have chips too, so not so common, but they do. And plantains, plátanos, fried. And this is oh so typical. My Cuban Spanish teacher said, oh yeah, this is kind of a staple, is and potatoes, well, potato-like substance anyway, and then olives, pork, onions, and rice. Let's move on to music and the arts, okay? We did face-to-face everywhere we went, and Q&A, and they answered every question we asked. This guy is living in what used to be a mansion belonging to the 1%ers. Under Spain, you had strict caste system. If you were from Spain, if you look Spanish heritage, you were the top 1%ers. The darker your skin was, from Indian down to imported slaves, blacks, then not so much. You were a worker bee, and no class status at all. So the 1%ers own mansions like this. Well, when Castro came in, first thing he did is take those away and distribute those to families. Everyone had a place to stay of their own. So in this case, it's a family or two or three, what used to be occupied by one family. So you would see upstairs probably 2-3 families, and then downstairs is the art studio, public, etc. Okay, this man, I think he's from Spain. I can't recall, but he takes recycled television parts and makes that art, and that art tells a story, which he's explaining television. But he had about 50 old televisions that were in the dump in his backyard, and was taking them apart and making the stuff. He sells them worldwide through an agent and gets big money for them. And the state of Cuba gets half of the income. And then that income is used to buy healthcare, schools, education, and roads, and everything for everyone. So you share half, you can still make a lot of money. So it's not communist. Some people say that. No, it's not. And that would be where everyone is totally equal. Well, they're not. Okay. Here is a diorama painted on the side of a building, and it is the looking back at the history of Cuba. These are the Spanish, if you want to call them lords, you know, the upper 1%, walking down their street. But that's all painted to look real on a building. That is a real balustrade down below it on the street. So as you walk by, you see the balustrade and you see the diorama, and it's phenomenal. Great art. Then we went to another town. It was Remedianas, and every year they have a competition, a festival, as you can see, I mean, with fireworks, everything, but a big parade, costumes, and then they compete with another town. It'd be, I don't know, like Tacoma and Kent, say, or Kent and Auburn, and they compete, and then they get a trophy, and they get bragging rights for the whole year till the next festival. Here's some of the things that they created for the last festival. Imagine that. Art. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This gentleman, we went in his home, which is a converted mansion, and several families live there, or extended families live there. In this case, extended family, you know, grandma, grandpa, maybe 3 generations of people. And he takes old cedar window shutters that could go back as far as 200, 300 years old. And when a building comes down or they replace it with something different, what he'll do is salvage those and make 3D art with carving tools. My gosh, look at this. That's an old window shutter, a big one, of course, but look at that. That's wood carved. And this is wood carved by hand. And what he does is he interviews extensively every one of these people and hears their story and then tries to tell their story in the piece that he creates. So it isn't just copying a photo. He knows these people and he's trying to reflect the lives they've lived, which is fantastic. That's garlic, by the way, ajo. But they have modern art. So you take a look at this and tell me how they did it. I can think I know, but anyway, ingenious, I thought. It's in the town square. Then we went to a jewelry shop, but it's way more than that. So yes, these things are there. You can buy them, we did. But folks, that's all made from recycled jewelry, gold, melted watches. It's all recycled material. And in the wall, behind the wall you're looking at are these people. These are students, and they are learning the craft of jewelry. And they made the things out in the front. Ingenious. And what I learned, again, is that this is a business. So the license with Cuba is you run a jewelry shop, cool, on one condition, that you train students like vocational education, job skill training, and then you share half the profits with the nation of Cuba, which gets distributed, yes, socialistically to public needs, and then you keep half. And these kids learn a trade. It was phenomenal. There you go. They're learning, they're doing. And that's all recycled material. Go out on the streets anywhere and you're going to see guys, not women really, mostly guys, playing music. They love music in that culture. Everybody likes music and dance. And I wish we could adopt that here in this country myself. But will they take a tip? Sure. Do they get to keep it? Sure. Sure. Okay. So maybe one of those guys is a dentist. Maybe one of those guys is a cab driver. Maybe one of those guys is retired. Doesn't matter. If you want to do that, and people, you get maybe you get extra money to help your child get new clothes, or maybe it's to keep grandma happy, or to buy some paint to fix your house up, whatever. We went to a music school, a Vogue school, and these people, that's their job, by the way. Everyone in Cuba is guaranteed a job. And in most cases, it's the one you want. Not always. They may say, no, your job is something that needs to be, a slot that needs to be filled for the, what they would consider the good of all. But at any rate, these people had a passion to be singers. All kids get a music education. All kids get art and music. And their job for the government is to be ambassadors around the world. And boy, were they good. And they love what they're doing. Here's a performing arts center, opera house, etc. This is in Havana. Here is a father-son duo. And again, this is in a house that's shared with several families. You know, the young guy and his family and dad. And yeah, so the housing is distributed. Anyway, they record the music on CDs. I bought them and then they market those. And it was excelente. Go to a little cafe, a restaurant, you're going to see guys singing and playing, and you just get used to it, and it's wonderful. Again, out on the street, what do you got? Okay. And notice the street, by the way. I will say this about Cuba. ADA, American with Disabilities Act, has not hit Cuba yet. So if you need a walker or you got a cane or, you know, wheelchair, it's tough. They make do, but it's tough. A different cafe, and we got to talk to these musicians about what they do. This is not their full-time jobs at all. One of those was a teacher. Another one, I forgot what he did. I mean, a whole host of jobs, but this is what they do on their off time to earn extra money. Went to a pretty nice restaurant in a hotel, and sure enough, look at this. Ladies playing, and that's their job. Go outside, and these are music students in, let's see, this is junior high. Then we went to a place where this gentleman makes those instruments, every instrument you see, and they're so ingenious, but he also taught us how to do them. And I gave it a go, and the rhythm is not, it's not as easy as it looks, I must admit. Then they showed us, of course, the popular dances are the rumba and the salsa. I love it. Okay. He took a clay pot or jar, if you want to call it that, and he cut a hole in it, and he made a conch shell percussion instrument that is just for all the world like it's a professional tuba. I mean, if you want to call it tuba. Beautiful. Let's see, next one. All right. Then we went to, I mean, if you're in Cuba, you got to dance. Well, you don't have to. And we got some lessons. So we got salsa lesson, and it is pretty much, what do you call it, mathematical. You know, 3 forward, 3 back, 3 to the right, 3 to the left. Out to the right.
Yeah, we're gonna look like that.
And when you learn to salsa, you got to go use it. So we went to the incredibly famous Buena Vista Social Club in this hotel. That's a diorama looking down, but that's the hotel, what it looks like. And that's the place where, oh my gosh, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, what's his name? I forgot just a second. Anyway, and John Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe and the Mafia, and everybody hung out in the 40s and 50s. Very famous, 60s too, for that matter. So it was the go-to place, the Buena Vista Social Club. And of course we danced. So I was dancing in the back, and this lady who works there saw me and dragged me up front, and we had a good time. Now a little politics. Well, not really, but in the broad sense of the word, folks. And that sign is by Jose Marti, kind of what you call the George Washington of Latin American liberation, especially Cuba, etc. He was their George Washington, liberating countries from Spain. And the statue touched my heart. It says, "Los madres son amor." The mothers are love, exquisite sensibility or sensitivity, and inconsolable pain. You will see signs saying, "Thanks, Fidel." They do appreciate that man. They like what he did. Now, there were those who didn't like it, and that was pretty much the 1%ers, or the ones who, you know, on that class-based system, the ones who were on top of the heap. And many of them fled to Florida and elsewhere, my Spanish teacher included, and then ended up moving all over the country. But people thank Fidel today. You will not see his picture because Fidel didn't want his picture. He was not an egotist, and he said, "It's not about me, it's about the revolution, it's about the change." Okay? You will see this though. There is Fidel Castro shaking the hand of Ernest Hemingway, who loved to go down there, and he supported the concept of the change. Here's a monument to the rebels that overthrew the dictatorship of Bautista that was supported by the US CIA. And these are the martyrs that died, and they honor them. And the guy on the horse, that's Che Guevara. He was the right-hand man of Castro, and he didn't mind his picture everywhere. In fact, that's him everywhere. He was a bit of an egotist. There you go, Che Guevara. So it's not Castro. What happened is once Castro wanted to get about the business of change, Che was a restless revolutionary, and he didn't want to sweat the details. He just wanted to have a revolution. So Castro kind of sent him and said, "Why don't you go start a revolution somewhere else?" So he went to South America, and I think that's where he met his end. See, there's Che all over the place. Anyway, all right. And then there was a time once the U.S. When Spain, when the United States dictatorship down there was kicked out, Bautista was kicked out in, I think, 1959, then here was Cuba left all on its own and needing resources, financial help, etc. And the US wouldn't help them. You look up that history. And so they turned to Russia, who was more than willing to help them. They didn't want to adopt the Russian system by any means, but they would accept their help. So that's a Russian embassy that was built during the period of the Russian assistance, they call it. Cubans call it the Russian middle finger. Oops, sorry. And they also built a lot of housing structures, and you will see those. Then, folks, we went up to the north near Havana, and we went to the site of one of the sites of the Cuban Missile Crisis, 1962. And this is facing the Caribbean. This is a bunker when they were afraid they were going to get air bombed or nuked by the United States. So they had bunkers built everywhere. Now it's a museum. And here is we had a docent who taught us all about this, and he lived through it. And that was his job. His national job is to be docent. They really do support history education. They have a union of historians, etc. We went down to the Bay of Pigs, and that's where well, you look up the story, but that's an invasion through the Bay of Pigs, you will see. And we stood there in Bajía de Cochinos, the Bay of Pigs. Now, the only invasion that we saw was this, land crabs. Yeah, that's a fact. You can't eat them, but they were coming up to mate, but it's quite the scene, eh? Then we went to Pinar, and yeah, and there's Che Guevara again on a building. I just had to take that picture. Now, this will give you a great flavor of Cuba. No, they are not backward people. Technologically, they're geniuses, very inventive, but they can't get parts. They can't get stuff because of the US embargo. So they make do with what they got. And of course, that means out in the rural, and most of Cuba is very rural. You've got animal power, let's put it that way. Train power. This was originally for the sugarcane factory, because sugarcane, especially for mojitos and for rum and for sugar, was huge. Now they are used for transportation, some of them. Like this, the train pulled this, well, excuse me, I'll call it a taxi, to a nearby village. And we did see this too. This is a wedding, of course. I was going to say, imagine your wedding on a bicycle taking off, but there you are, okay? And you see the guy in the background with a taxi made out of spare parts of all kinds. They're very common. That pedicab, I guess you call it. But also you see a very modern bus. And that came in the time of the no embargo during the Obama administration. Transportation in Via Clara, you see mopeds and a horse. And an old school bus, definitely. You see a lot of old vehicles, and that's strictly because the embargo is killing them. So they have to make it do. Just about everything has a diesel motor, and that's because it's easier to make or get, and it's cheaper. There you go. Of days gone by, still keeping it running. And that was our bus, but again, that came in, I'm not sure if it was Canadian or Swedish. That's a Russian motorcycle from days gone by, before the wall fell in Russia. I mean, in East Berlin. There you go, very typical rural scene. Old bus. There you go. And you can see the houses too. Everybody has a home now. Are they in disrepair because these people don't take care of them? Oh my God, they're even, no, the answer is no. They even sweep the dirt to make it look as nice as they can. Everybody's very proud, but they can't get paint or they can't get building materials. Concrete's a big one, rebar. So they make do with what they got. They would love to have sheet metal to put on the roofs. They would love it. Another Russian. I do believe this one is from Denmark or Sweden. So a whole variety of vehicles. And a lot of those pedicabs, and they are genius how they keep those going with parts of all kinds. You see a little goat wagon, if you will, with that boy. And you see some housing there. So, like apartments. And you have bueyes. kind of oxen. And the quinceañera, that's very typical in Latino countries. The 15-year-old birthday party, the coming out party. We used to call it the cotillion. Anyway, they celebrate it big time. And there's your car. Woohoo! This is a store for locals. Everyone gets a ration book, and it doesn't mean that's all you can get, because you can earn spare money, but everyone's guaranteed the basics. So nobody goes without hygiene supplies, dish soap. I'll call it the basics. And so they go in the store with their ration books and pick them up, okay? Would they love more? Oh yeah, absolutely they would. But they do the best they can with the embargo. They would love more clothes. Religion, contrary to public opinion, and commonly, Cuba is not Catholic, where you would think they're Latino, so they're Catholic. Not so. What we learned as the Cuban people, especially the younger folks, really fell out of love with the Catholic Church because, in their explanation, because they cooperated with the exploitation of Cubans, whether it was through the Spanish conquistadores, the enslavement of the local people, bringing in slavery, and the church profited from all that, and so they aided and abetted in the eyes of the Cubans. And then further, they didn't speak out against the poverty, huge poverty for many of the people. They also stood by and cooperated when child sex abuse was taking place. And so for all kinds of reasons, they don't have a lot of love right now for the Catholic Church. You'll see Catholic churches everywhere, but they're not well attended. However, the Sanderian religion is kind of up and coming, although I would say most of Cuba is secular. But the Sanderians, because Cuba is not Spanish, it is Afro-Caribbean Latino, Spanish. Their roots are from the Caribbean region and African, and that's because of the slavery history there. Spain brought in slaves. So you have Afro-Caribbean, so Haiti, Dominican Republic, Bermuda, etc., and then a mix with the Spanish origins. Well, the Sanderians came from not Haiti, but elsewhere in the Caribbean. And they're not voodoo, okay? That's not voodoo at all. What they are is more like pantheists. God is in everything. God is in nature. God is in animals. God is in plants. And so they were not unlike Native Americans here, a respect for life in general, not just human life, okay? And here's a Sanderian priest, and he's teaching us about what they believe and how they have novices, and then they advance, etc., etc. It was very compelling and kind of like Druids, I guess, in a sense, too. And then they have gods, multiple gods. Here's a war god, or one of their war gods, but they gave us the dances that celebrate their various gods. Okay. And I love Cuba, if nothing else, has color everywhere. They love rich colors. It's beautiful. And these ladies helped make those instruments and also played them beautifully. Let you read that for a second. So everyone's guaranteed a salary. Everyone gets a ration book. And then you're on your own after that. Everyone's guaranteed a house or a home. housing of some kind. And then here you go with cuenta propismos, your own money. You got ways to earn your own money, or another way is paladares, which are homes converted to businesses. So here is cuenta propismos. These ladies are walking the streets selling flowers and selling kisses. So for $1, I got that, which was kind of cool. And she had the best smile in the world, and we got a picture with each other. That was nice. So they're earning some money and dressed beautifully. This gentleman's job is to sell newspapers. He's got one arm, and the government said, well, your job is to sell newspapers. This lady's job. Now, I hope by now that you've noticed the ethnicity is everything from what you call light-skinned, Spanish-looking, to very dark-skinned, as in African, which was rooted in slavery. Okay, but now people from all over the world will come to Cuba because of the opportunities. Even though it's not perfect, it's definitely better than many nations that these folks come from. It's not an oppressive regime. You know, it isn't civil war all the time, and it's got opportunity, plus healthcare and education guaranteed. So their job is to give you toilet paper, clean the restrooms, and yes, they take tips. Some make dolls and sell them, and these dolls are ingenious because every doll is either dark skinned or light skinned, depending on your which part of the doll you grab. So if you flip this, hi.
So yes, I have one of those dolls from my relative from Cuba.
Oh,
Sorry.
you do? Okay. What do you think?
I think it's very sweet. Yeah, it's really cool. She doesn't, like these dolls you were saying, they flip and then there's like 2 faces per doll.
And different color.
And different colors. Yeah, mine doesn't have that. Mine is just a doll, and her legs are made out of old cigars. So it was really cool.
Really?
Yeah, wrapped cigars.
Oh,
like,
it's good.
Like the ones that were ineffective or something. Instead of throwing it away, they made it into a doll.
It's ingenious.
Yeah.
You use what you got, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
The dolls are really cute, though.
Oh, they are so cute. And we bought one of these because, again, you get 2 dolls in one. And so if it's dark on the outside, they flip the skirt over, you got a white doll. Or you got or you got a brown doll. So it reflects the ethnicity diversity of Cuba. Here is a beautiful example of a paladar. It is formerly a mansion for one rich family. Now it is 2 or 3 families living upstairs, or an extended family, if you will. And downstairs is converted into a business. And we ate in there. Ingenious. Inside, this is what it looked like. So now it's converted to a beautiful restaurant and bar. And this gentleman came over. This guy, you can tell his age, and he definitely lived through the Cuban Missile Crisis. He lived through lots of history in Cuba and the revolution, by the way. But the fascinating thing I want to tell you now is that they don't want our money so much. Yeah, of course they love to earn money from tourists, but they want things that they can't get because of the embargo. This gentleman is a fisherman, and he can't get fishing line or fishing lures because they don't make them there, and they got to import them. Okay, and let me explain to you. Not only what you say, well, why don't they just buy them from Canada or Yugoslavia or England or something? Because under the US embargo, under our current president, any country that stops at Cuba in a port or an airport and delivers materials may not enter a US port or airport for 6 months. So they get punished by not being able to do business in the United States for 6 months if they dare flout our embargo. So it makes it very hard for these guys. So knowing that, we brought some things with us, and the lady on the right or left with the heart, she brought fishing lures, and here you see presenting him with fishing lures, and he cried. He was thrilled because he's going to use that and share it with his friends who fish, and now they've got fishing lures, and they're just, we just, you know, we can go down and buy him any day of the week, but he can't, so he was happy. So we will call ourselves Goodwill Ambassadors. Then we went to Cuba, of course, Cuba and cigars, you know, went to a Cuban cigar factory. They don't allow a lot of pictures, if any, because they're afraid of copyright infringement, etc. And so upstairs is where they work, but they did let me take one. And here you will see what I learned, folks. I learned that cigars, they make different quality. I didn't know that. From ones that sell for about $1 a piece to $25 a piece. Yeah, okay. Here's a lady, typical, making cigars. They roll those tobacco leaves, then they cut them off and blah, blah, blah. Okay, yes, it's dangerous because nicotine poisoning through the fingers can happen, and it does. That's sad. Also, people in their smoke, and of course, you know, there you go, like we know. But anyway, it's a very desired job, believe it or not. And you will see all ethnicities in the cigar factories. Well, here's why. Because let's say she's making the cheap cigars. She makes those, rolls them, and she's doing an apprenticeship, if you will. Every night she gets 5 free cigars of her quality. So she can go out on the street, well, they could smoke them if they want, or they can go sell them on the street, okay, and make some extra money. Then if you do well enough and meet what I'll call a quota, then you get to work up to making the next caliber of cigar, and so on until you hit the $25 a piece cigars. All this time, keep in mind, you get to take 5 home. If you take home 5 $25 cigars, my gosh, maybe you can mail those to a friend in the United States or some other country and get them sold, and you just made $125, which is huge, huge in Cuba. So definitely you can make some money. And the other thing is, these people, if a lady gets pregnant, she gets a long time off during the pregnancy, and then that's paid for, and she's got her job guaranteed when she gets back. Okay, and up in the front of the room, they're reading books to them, poetry, maybe they're playing the news, somebody's playing music for them. So it's kind of cool. I like it. Would I want to do it? No. But hey, there are worse jobs. How about cars? Yep, here they go. Oh yeah, we did ride in them, you betcha. Now this is in Havana because that's where most of these cars are for tourists, if you will. But they also are taxis. Look at that. Woohoo! And they all got diesel motors, which kind of stunned me at first, but after a while, who cares? Then we went to a Guarapera, and Guarapa is a sugarcane juice, like you might call it a soft drink bar, but sugarcane juice, sugarcane water is so pure, so crisp and delicious and nourishing. It's not sticky sweet like corn syrup. It's just pure stuff. They put lemon in it, and and sometimes lime, and it just makes it really a quencher. Now, if you want to, you can buy some rum, stick it in there, and have a mojito. We went to a sugarcane factory, and let me tell you, folks, they don't mix any words about their history. There are some history things that we hide from ourselves. They don't hide this. He is a guy that used to be employed at the factory. Now the factory is shut down, and partly because, mostly because, making sugarcane juice and growing it, etc., has been shipped over to Indonesia because countries don't want to deal with the embargo. Okay, so they just say, well, we'll just go to Indonesia, which is hurting these folks because it's part of their heritage. But so is slavery, and they teach you how slavery was under the Spanish all the way through early 1900 at least. And they teach kids this. Kids come there and they teach them about the evils and the brutality of slavery in picture form. These pictures maybe should be in U.S. history books because that happened in our country as well, but they teach it. There's what the factory looked like. And then he showed us how they did it. Of course, on an industrial scale, they do it with those machines, but he showed us how it's done small scale. And you take the sugar cane, run it through four times, and you get more and more juice out of it. And then they take all the leftover, what you call raw materials, chaff, and they use it in the furnaces to turn the machine, to run the boilers, to turn the machine. So it's all recycled, and it's really cool. No oil, just sugarcane stalks. And then you get the sugarcane juice, which is turned into brown sugar just by cooking it. It's not dyed like our brown sugar. This is the real thing. And of course the juice, they do make, you can make white sugar out of it. And also molasses, pure sipping good molasses. Yum. No artificial corn syrup and all that junk. Then we went to another little town, and this gentleman who was quite elderly and had no teeth came to sell some little natural treats that he made, almond based. And oh gosh, was that good? Oh, it was good. But anyway, I said, can I ask you a question? He said, sure. He didn't speak English. And I said, what would you like from America? And I thought he'd say something like, well, understanding, or get rid of the embargo, or what, I had a vision of what he might say. And then he thought about it and he made me laugh. He said, well, we sure as hell don't want Starbucks or McDonald's. And then he grinned and he said, well, maybe Home Depot, because they need the materials to build and paint and all that. So it's really surprised me, and we had a great chuckle. Then we went for a ride in these carts made by hand, just ingenious and fun. And believe it or not, these kids are coming home from school. This is the little school trolley to take kids from the school. That's the town square, and people hang out in the square. It's beautiful.
What kind of ant is that? A goat that was in the last picture that would drive that cart?
That's a goat.
Okay, thank you. That's cool.
It's a 1964 Chevy goat. Anyway, you can see the old wheels and the old parts, but it works, hey? Anyway, parents, kids running around like we used to in, quote, the good old days. Just intermingling with all generations. It's really cool. So then we went to a town square of another town, and yes, they have merchandise they make and sell. And that's leather product. Then we stayed in another paladar. This used to be a mansion. I think it was when the French in the 1800s were, you know, they intermarried royalty from one country and the other. So the French had a period of severe influence in Cuba under Spanish rule. And this was a mansion for a wealthy sort. But now you have multiple families living upstairs, and the part of it is turned into a courtyard and apartments, or what you call like a bed and breakfast. And I'm looking down from the balcony where my room was. And of course they serve dinner down there. And here's upstairs balcony rooms. Again, used to be one private mansion back in a long time ago. Before Castro, let's put it that way. Downstairs, these multiple families run this restaurant. And there's my group. And typical food and delish. And meanwhile, people were playing music, men on guitars. Yeah, the cars, the drivers, the fuel, diesel. The drivers that you see, they might be dentists, doctors, school teachers, plumber, you know, all kinds of, they might be anything. So, and then that's their other job. And then the cars, again, make that diesel noise when you expect a, you know, a humming Chevy 55 motor, not. So, and that's because they can't get parts, so they have to fix them best they can. And I think they did a good job on this one. And those. I bet you recognize some of those. And in the background, you see the building. This is in Havana. And yes, they have a lot of crumbling buildings. The weather kills them. The concrete's very old. And of course it weathers and it starts crumbling as concrete does. And it needs fixing. And they can't get the concrete. Love it. You gotta love that. But there you go. We have that here too. So I'm going to give an example beyond what I've said about the embargo. I wanted my group to experience the highs and the lows of Cuba because, again, they will mention that, you know, they would like more. This hotel chain was brought in by, I believe, Canada, and it was built during the time before the US embargoes. Okay, it's a 5-star hotel. It's on the Caribbean. You can see how beautiful it is. It's expansive grounds. Nice. There we go. Okay, and let me tell you this. This hotel is all inclusive. So room, food, and drinks, all included in the price. So I heard a lot of Canadian accents there. A lot of Canadians were there. And this was during the Obama administration where people were much more free to come. American businesses were just streaming down there to get involved, to build, to take people on cruise ships. Airlines were just lining up to come down there. We were happy, Cuba was happy. At any rate, so I talked to the Canadians and I said, do you guys come here very often? And these 3 ladies said, well, yeah, about 4 times a year. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, 4 times a year to a 5-star resort? Ouch, that's gonna cost a lot. Well, here's what they told me. I said, so how much did that cost? Knowing the answer, of course. And they said, well, let's see, round trip airfare from Canada, 8 days, all expenses paid, $800. $800. And I about choked. And I said, well, I'm going to go up to Quebec and fly down. She said, you can't. The U.S. embargo will not let you. You have to, it depends on your passport. And so therefore, the rest of the world could do it, can come down there and shop or live or enjoy quite reasonably, but the US cannot. And the other thing is that they can use credit cards. The rest of the world can use credit cards in Cuba, and we cannot. So we have to convert our money, US money, to their cash. We have to. Can't use American cash, right? They have their ways of getting back at us for our embargo. This is one of the ways, and that is, no, you can't come down there cheaply and stay. And B, you have to use our cash, and you have to bring cash and convert it. No credit cards. And then when you convert it, you have to pay a 30% exchange rate, where if Canadians did it, it would be 8%. So we get stung. So who's really paying for the embargo? Is it Cuba or is it us? School and medical. Oh my Lord. I have a picture here of a Down syndrome school, if you will. And they learn the arts and dance and everything. It's just, I was very impressed. The educational emphasis I will show you in a second, and the medical. Read this if you would. Education is the primary focus in Cuba. That was Castro's wish. Free preschool through college. Compare that to us. They don't come out in debt. Medical school is free, but then you have to serve 5 years as required. You serve in other nations that have high needs, or you serve in communities in Cuba that have high needs. It's a 5-year, what I'll call payback. Kind of a little bit like Peace Corps. I guess you say the same thing with the military academies in the States. You get a free education, but then you have to serve for 5 years in the military. But that's what they do with medical school. And many nations send their people down to Cuba to get trained as doctors, A, because they don't go into debt to do it, and they're very well respected, one of the finest medical experts in the world, okay? But they're hurting, because the medical schools and the hospitals, because of the embargo, can't get the supplies they need. So it's actually punishing the needy in Cuba, the medically needy. A point of fact, infant mortality rate in Cuba, despite all that, is 4.3 per thousand. Ours is 5.3 with all of our resources. Why is that? And look how much they spend on education compared to us. So you explain that any way you can, but they have an emphasis on medical and education for all. The other, as I mentioned, that they can't get things. Money, maybe yeah, you could use more, of course, but they need things. They can't get them because of the embargo. One of those that we knew was pens. The other is paper and crayons for school. So we brought paper, we brought notebooks, we brought crayons, and we brought pens. And I will say thank you to my credit union, Twin Star, for giving me 100 pens to take down there. A plastic pen that we throw away costs $1 down there. So let me tell you what, they were thrilled. We always asked the parents first, and they were always, yes, please. Crayons. They were happy. Mom was totally happy. Okay, school kids, uniforms, yes. This is elementary school. Red is elementary. Look at the ethnicity variation. you will see that it's a cross section of the world, if you will. Actually, the world. Here's a typical classroom, not in greatest, like most modern, but boy, the class size impressed me. Hot, yeah, they got fans and stuff, but anyway. And every kid gets a free lunch or a snack or both. I mean, they don't have to buy it. We have a lot of kids in schools today who are in lunch debt. They don't have any of that. Every kid gets an arts education, performing arts, fine arts, musical arts, etc. It's everybody does. Here it's kind of hit or miss whether you get that or not, but they all do. There you go, elementary kid on the guitar, kids playing flutes. Now, back to the embargo. What can't they get? Strings. They can't get reeds. They can't get valves. So we took up a collection when we got home. We went to a local music store in Olympia, Yenny's, and bought at, they gave us a really good deal at cost. And we gave it to the next group going down, and they gave them the parts, lots of parts, and I know they were happy. But that's what they need. They need piano strings and parts for these instruments. Those are middle school kids. Performing arts, oh yeah. And you will see this, okay? Yep, they need wiring, they need infrastructure repair. You see a lot of this kind of stuff, and that's because they need the tubing, they need the equipment, they need the wires, they need the cement. Some of this, none of this is because they're lazy or sloppy, okay? Part of this is the weather. Climate change is killing them, and they get more fierce storms which just batter that concrete, okay? And then so when they can, they dismantle it piece by piece, and then restore it as they can, best they can, okay? But then some homeowners will come take the scrap and do what they can in the house, even build a fence. It's called los derrumbes, the crumbling, and you'll see that a lot. Unfortunately, these are aged buildings, and they just don't have the things, the stuff, the hardware, the Home Depot to go fix it. But they do what they can as fast as they can. They would love more paint. Definitely, they love color, and they want to repaint buildings, and they can't. As you see, it's getting aged. Here's a 1500s cathedral, and that's Father Junipero Serra, who built a lot of missions in California too, but first in Cuba. There you go, see, typical concretes. When Russia was there, they built a lot of concrete structures, and the weather is just killing it, but everybody's got an apartment. And you go rural, and you see they make fences with what they can, fix their homes the best they can. Look how clean and pristine that dirt is. They sweep it. This is built by Russia, very typical, you know, plain old boring building, but lots of rooms. And they're happy to have the rooms. They just wish they could paint the thing and fix it up and maybe replace things like faucets, toilet seats, things that break. In some tourist centers of towns, you will see much nicer. They realize that this is good for tourism and that's good for the economy. So you'll see some nicer things like that. More typical, water tower, aged building, no paint because they need it. Russian building, a lot of disrepair, and that's the weather, not the people's fault. Rural, you can see. Yeah. We went out to this village. That's where the old man was, and you can see the housing in the farm communities. They could use some lumber. By the way, the lumber's coming back in Cuba. It was totally devastated under U.S. occupation in the early 1900s. Corporate America ran down there and just strip mined Cuba's forests and raw materials and took it back to the United States. Yes, they did, and that started with Teddy Roosevelt. Ecology issues. Well, unfortunately, when the Russians left and the US was embargoing them, they had some very, very hard times. Of course, our depression, we call it hard times. Yeah, down there it was the difficult times, same thing. So what did they do for food? Well, they did the best they could, and you did see a lot of turtles disappear. You saw a lot of cats disappear, dogs. Why? For food, and crocodiles, for that matter, crocodiles too. So now the ecology departments are restoring the wildlife that was killed off during the hard times. So they're trying to bring back the crocodiles or alligators, I forgot, into the estuaries. So they raise them in these sanctuaries and try to reintroduce them into the natural ecosystems to restore the balance. And why? You see the alligators. I think it's alligator. Because these, in the absence of cats, in the absence of alligators, came and took over. These are the hutias. It's a tree rat, and it's big. It's like a little dog. And boy, they just devastate things. So the natural imbalance caused devastation. So the natural predators are being reintroduced to catch them or eat them when they're young. And the alligators will snatch them right out of the trees. And history everywhere, starting with phone booths. This is the Union of Historians of Cuba. Again, state sponsored, if you will. They value history. Here's part of the history, Father Sarah. There's good and bad parts to what he did to Cuba. Okay. This is part of the history. This is an old Spanish fort guarding the harbor of Havana. This is back in the 1500s, folks, guarding against pirates. They used to come in the harbor. So this is the Havana harbor entrance. Look at that. That has been there a long time. There it is still. Looking across the harbor. They had forts on both sides. And that's looking at Havana today. So you go up this, what they call the Malecon, or the balustrade, the walkway, whatever, and they call it the longest bench. Why? Okay.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that Malecon, or that what you might call the strip that goes all the way around Havana Harbor, at night is full of people. The young people come out and they party, they drink, they chat. Old people are there. I mean, it's a big hangout, but everybody's outdoors unless the weather's bad. But it's just full of life all the way around that thing. This is an old French mansion, which is now shared by several families. There's the Cuban flag, and there's Jose Marti, if you want to call it their George Washington statue, who led many Latino countries to freedom from Spain. Old, in disrepair, Needs fixed. Yep. Christopher Columbus's statue. Of course, quote, he discovered the Caribbean islands. Well, that's saying that no one was there first, which would be the Native Americans or Taínos. And of course, the first thing Columbus did is enslave them. And I won't get into the gory details, but it was brutal. And he turned them into gold seekers, if you will, or silver. And was brutal, just brutal. And that included rape. So this is part of the Spanish heritage, honoring Christopher Columbus, who really was Italian. I wonder if the statue is going to come down someday. I'm not sure, but anyway, there it is. It's kind of popular everywhere. And there you go. Inside, gorgeous Spanish cathedral. Again, not terribly well attended, but there are definitely Catholics. So the woodwork is phenomenal. This is a village chapel, church. You can see the difference immediately. See the overhead beams of that old wood. I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else a statue of Jesus like this with both knees punctured. Then we took a walk down the street. And by the way, I walk streets many times by myself or with two of us and just chatted with people or just walk. No restrictions, okay. But this is La Bodeguita, the little bodega. And you know what that is? That's where Hemingway used to hang out all the time. There it is. La Bodeguita. So there he is shaking hands with Castro again. Anyway, it's kind of a museum to Hemingway here. But there's also a town square in every village, and every night, people, parents, grandparents, young kids running back and forth, mingling, sharing. Oh, it's just, I love it. Here's a tribute to the invasion by the Cubans to liberate Cuba from the United States supported dictator Bautista. These are the monuments, if you will. Here's a different kind of housing. You can see multiple housing there. Okay, I'm waiting for it to advance. We're stuck a little bit, just a second. Oh no. Pause, folks, I'm sorry. It is...
This was my favorite part because it was Hemingway's house, right?
Here we go. Okay, we'll go back one. Please, go back one. Okay, don't freeze again. Yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
while we're looking at it, this is Hemingway's house in northern Cuba, where he wrote The Old Man and the Sea and all that. If this buggers out, I'll jump right back in.
Oh, no, it's beautiful. It
No.
looks.
But it is a museum. It is where he spent a lot of his life. And yeah, you can watch some documentaries on his life. He had some troubles. Okay, there we go. And we're gonna go, I knew it would do that. Okay, there we go. Okay, once it stops. Get back, folks, we'll get you back. We'll jump. Okay, there we go. Right there. See if I can jump up here. Ay, ay, ay.
Did you want me to pause it again?
Yeah, please.
Okay, hang on.
On that one, and we're gonna go slideshow from current slide. We're back.
Perfect. You're back.
Go
You're
ahead.
recording.
Good. So Finca Vajía, and that's in the north, just kind of northeast of Havana a little bit, right on the water, and gorgeous place. But anyway, it's a monument to him. Yes, he hunted in Africa. That's what you see. And it was a beautiful place. And it's got his picture, of course. Inside, as you can see, he was a hunter and a writer. He also was a fisherman, and this is the boat that he had. It's also the boat he was fishing on when he was transporting weapons to help the Cubans, and the FBI was all over him, J. Edgar Hoover, and I think he dumped all the weapons that he had hidden in the bay, so he didn't get arrested. Okay, so we left Finca Vajía and went across country to another place, but I wanted you to see this is what much of Cuba looks like. Not Havana any more than New York City is New York State. It's beautiful countryside and lots of farmland. See, they can't afford fencing materials, so what do they build? They use trees. Here's a beautiful farm. Theater and the arts are big, even in little towns. And Caibarien, as you can see, the housing is not all that. In the background, you can see apartment dwellings, and then you see what I call shacks, if you will. But some towns are like this, with beautiful tile roofs. So there's a whole variety, a potpourri of architecture and colors, especially in their clothing. They love colors. That they have more of. They would love those buildings to be repainted with bright colors, but they can't get the paint. So at the end of this video, the end of this slideshow, I'm giving you another YouTube to go to, which is totally different, but it teaches you about the diversity of Cuba through the faces of the players, and they're all over the world, Cubans are. And what I wanted to say is their national song, if you will, is Guantanamera. So you can look it up on YouTube, or you can use that link right there. Guantanamera is their national song, and it's a very moving song, but it's based on Guantanamo. So a Guantanamera is a lady from Guantanamo, Amera. And then in the song they call it Guajira, which means a farm girl from Guantanamo. And you can look up the lyrics for Guantanamera. You will love this performance. I hope you will. And get your feet tapping, okay? Thanks for joining me. I hope it shows you the diversity, the values, how people live, what they eat, how they get around, and hopefully you'll see them as people and not as a government or a propaganda stereotype. That's what I hope. So thank you, everyone.